Well, again, welcome to Portsmouth This Week, the Voice of Portsmouth Town Hall. Today is the 10th of January, 2014. This is our first show. It's my pleasure to introduce Judge Richard D'Addario, who will be our municipal court judge to the show. Welcome, Judge.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming on in the first show of the year here. Before we discuss how a municipal court works, I wonder if you could discuss your background a little bit.
I sure can. I mean, it's never easy to talk about yourself, but I'd be glad to do that. But before I do that, let me just say that you know, when I was asked to be on this program, I was given a website connection to this channel, cable channel, and I watched some of the shows that you guys have done, and I was very impressed with the quality of what you're doing, and also the amount of information that's available to people. So, you know, and I don't think a lot of people know about it, but it's great that you do this every week, and you can really learn about your community. So I commend you for that, and I think you guys do a terrific job. So as far as myself, I mean, first of all, I'm thrilled to be selected as the municipal court judge in Portsmouth. It's, you know, it's an honor to get picked to do that type of a task, and I consider it, you know, a public service. I mean, it's not something that you do for financial gain necessarily, but so it's a real privilege to be able to participate in something like this on the level that we're participating in. And I've been here since 1971. I grew up in New York, lived out on Long Island for a while, where I went to high school, and I then went to Boston College. And when I went to Boston College, I really kind of got exposed to New England for the first time. I was a New Yorker, bred and raised there, and lived in the city for a while. But when I was in Boston, I was able to participate in activities in New England, and I really enjoyed it. So I knew that I wanted to settle in New England somewhere. And then I went to New York University Law School. I was lucky to be able to do that. So between Boston College and New York University, I was privileged to have the education I had. And when I left NYU in 1971, I was fortunate enough to land a job with Renown Legal Services. At that time, that was part of the OEO program under the War on Poverty that Johnson administration had was involved in, and we had we had branch offices throughout the state providing legal services to people that could not afford lawyers in civil cases, different than the public defender. The public defender handled criminal cases. So I came as a Renown Legal Services attorney. Actually, I was a VISTA volunteer, which for the first year, which was the domestic Peace Corps, so to speak, under the OEO programs. And I did that for 5 years. I worked in Providence for a while. But when I came up here, they said, look, we can put you in Newport if you want. We need another lawyer down there. And my exposure to Newport had been rather limited. I had been there for a couple of festivals, as probably all of us did.
Yeah.
Jazz and folk. And my wife at that time was from Rhode Island, so we had some connection here, of course. So I was lucky to be here. And you know, I got placed in a Newport office. I thought that would be a good place to open a law practice when I left legal services, which I did in '76. And I practiced by myself for a couple of years on Bull Street, sharing space with another attorney. And then I was in a partnership with Joe Hall and Ron Makeley on Toro Street. It was Hall, D'Addario, and Makeley. And at that time, we had a branch office on East Main Road in Portsmouth. Really? For a while. That you know, we used to do some intake out there, and we got involved in a lot of different things in Newport County. I did a lot of court work. I was a trial attorney. I did some real estate work. I did a variety of everything. And Joe and Ron and I went our separate ways in 1985, and I moved down to One Courthouse Square, which is the old short line bus station. I've been there since '85, and that's worked out great for me. I have a small office for a while. At various times, I've had you know, another attorney working with me. Right now, I'm by myself. I have one paralegal, one secretary, and I do a variety of legal work. So when I first started out in practice, I didn't know anybody up here. I mean, I had some connections through legal services, but you know, you work at it and you build it up. And the first thing I was lucky to do was, I know Bob Silver was the town council president in Middletown, and he and I were acquaintances, and he asked me if I wanted to do the assistant solicitorship in Middletown. So I did that, and then 2 years later, they appointed me as probate judge in Middletown, which was kind of interesting because I was probably the youngest judge in the state. I think it was only 30 at the time. So I did that for 2 years, and that was kind of an honor to be able to do that. In later years, then I moved out to Tiverton in 1980. We lived in Newport for a while. I moved out to Tiverton in 1980, and I've been there since '80. So that's my background. I have 2 boys that are grown, and grandchildren, of course.
They both lawyers by any chance?
No, neither one of them went that route. My oldest boy, Peter, is the sales manager for the D'Addario music string company. They manufacture music strings and other accessories in New York. It's a fairly large company. And my other son, Christopher, is a English professor at Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
He teaches 17th century English literature and some Shakespeare.
Wow.
So he's
So you get some education when
yeah.
these guys come back,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
you want it or not, huh?
Yeah, and they, my youngest boy went to Portsmouth Abbey. My oldest boy went to Bishop Connolly. So they, they've been around.
Yeah.
Here they still come back, but I wish they lived a little closer, but they're not. They don't. But they're on their own. So, I was lucky to get appointed probate court judge in Tiverton in 1993, and I've been on the bench there since '93. And the odd thing about Tiverton is that the charter provides that the probate judge gets elected. So I am the only elected.
Vice appointed, I guess.
Yeah, as opposed to being appointed in every other town. And I might say to, I'll review the court system for the viewers, so they have an understanding of how that works. But probate courts are all town-wide, so every town has its own probate court. So we have a probate judge in Portsmouth, we have a probate judge in Middletown, we have one in Tiverton, and they have a separate court that's handled usually by the town clerks or somebody in the town office, similar to what we'll be doing with the municipal court. And in all towns except Tiverton, the probate judge is appointed by the town council when they take office. And in Tiverton, however, we're elected. So I've run unopposed, thankfully, since '94 in the even number of years. So I've been doing that since '93, and it's been a great experience. I really enjoy doing it. I enjoy meeting the people that come before me. I enjoy the lawyers, and the work is exciting. I was appointed probate judge in Little Compton last year around this time, and I started there in July when Judge Clifford resigned. And the charter in Tiverton also provides that upon the absence of the municipal court judge, you sit in if there's a conflict or if something happens and he can't sit. And when Judge Nebergall died suddenly a couple of years ago, I sat as the substitute judge for 6 months in the municipal court in Tiverton. So I had municipal court experience in Middletown and Tiverton, and now we're going to start something in Portsmouth. So we're really starting from the ground floor here. And,
but you've got a lot of good experience, so I think
well,
you can draw on, probably, right?
I've got enough behind me that I think we can put it together. And of course, with the expertise of the solicitor's office and the town administrator, we should be able to, and the building inspector, we should be able to.
Okay, very
put something
quickly,
together.
let me ask you a question about your personal life. I was going to ask you if you knew much about Portsmouth, then I noticed you remember the Montauk golf course.
Yes.
So I assume you know the golf course area very well. Then,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I've never lived in Portsmouth. I can tell you this.
Well, you've driven
I've
through
been
it a lot.
driving through it since 1980,
Yeah.
back and forth. So I think I can ride East and West Main Road,
There you
probably
go.
blindfolded. But yeah, I've been a member of Montauk for a long time. This is a great place, and well, of course, Portsmouth, like anywhere else, is around here, is a town of beauty, and we're lucky to have it. There's so many
Absolutely.
nice places in our Newport County, and Portsmouth is certainly no exception. So, I'm thrilled to be able to contribute to Portsmouth in some way, if I can. The whole idea of the municipal court, of course, is to make the town a better place. Have our government running properly and make it more convenient for the citizens, if you could call it that, because as you know, or as people should know, the municipal court right now, we're going to be authorized in Portsmouth to handle code enforcement, which basically means that we're going to be handling zoning code enforcement, other minimum housing code enforcement, nuisance violations, things like that, noise violations, whatever comes under the code, dog pet-related violations, things of that sort that are within the code. And it'll be more convenient for people, even though they have to go to court. It'll be easier for them to go to the town hall. It'll be easier for the enforcement officers
that don't have to drive to Providence.
Yeah, that don't have to go to the county court.
Yeah.
So, I had mentioned before we got on the air that it might be a good idea to review the court system in Rhode Island, because it is a little bit different. So basically, there's a statewide court system that at the top, of course, is the Rhode Island Supreme Court. But I'll start at the bottom. The lowest court in the district court is the district court, and that's where misdemeanors, which are minor criminal offenses. These are criminal offenses, not traffic offenses, but criminal offenses, and civil actions where the amount in dispute is less than $10,000. And that would also include what's called the small claims court within the district court. So we have the district court. Above that, on an appellate level, and on a original jurisdictional level, is the Superior Court. Superior Court has original jurisdiction over all civil matters over $10,000 in dispute, and also where you're looking for what's called injunctive relief, or some kind of specific relief, like a restraining order or an order that somebody do something, or a declaratory judgment. So you can't bring that in the district court. District Court has jurisdiction over eviction cases as well. All right? So now Superior Court's there handling civil cases that are more important, so to speak. Also criminal cases that are considered felonies. So you'd have armed robbery, assault with a weapon, reckless driving cases where you're leaving the scene without, where somebody's injured, those kinds of things. And of course, capital cases. So above that, you have a right to appeal to the Rhode Island Supreme Court, which we'll hear argument, and legal. It doesn't take testimony, but he has argument based upon the transcripts that come from the trial courts. In addition to that, we've always had what's called a traffic tribunal. It's called traffic tribunal now, to handle our traffic tickets, speeding, driving without a seatbelt, other traffic offenses of that sort. Refusing to take a breathalyzer. Those all go to the traffic tribunal. It used to be called the Administrative Adjudication Division when it was on Harris Avenue, also known as the AAD. I don't know if you remember that.
I've never had any experience
you're lucky.
with it. Thank you.
Well, you're lucky, but most of us have ever gone up to, we've probably been to the AAD up on Harris Avenue, and they built this beautiful traffic tribunal court in Cranston a few years ago. It really is a nice court. And they handle a large volume.
So they do statewide
It's a statewide traffic court, and that's where, if you got a ticket, then you in Portsmouth right now, if you had a speeding ticket that was over 10 miles over the speed limit, you would be summoned to go to the traffic tribunal, either in Cranston, or they have a branch in Wakefield at a separate building that the Department of Motor Vehicles runs in that area. So you'd be going there. Once we establish the municipal court, and hopefully take over the traffic cases as well, we'll be handling most speeding tickets of 10 miles over or less, failure to wear a seatbelt, red light, failure to obey a traffic signal, stop sign lights, things of that sort. Those cases will come before the municipal court in Portsmouth, and we'll have the same authority as judges to impose fines.
Okay, now the municipal court is a district court? I'm just trying to put that in the hierarchy.
No, the district court is a state court, so forget the state courts. The district court, the municipal courts are sort of a spin-off from the traffic. That's why I talked about the traffic first.
Traffic. Okay, sure.
So then the legislature has enacted what's called enabling legislation to allow towns to establish municipal courts. Not every town has the authority to do that. You have to have special legislation. And Portsmouth had that legislation passed in 2013, just last year, where under state law now, the town council of the town of Portsmouth may establish a municipal court and confer original jurisdiction in certain cases. There are so that that's where we are right now. We haven't started. We haven't had any sessions yet. I think we're going to start first with the code enforcement, and then and that'll work by let's assume the building inspector has a complaint that somebody's violating the zoning ordinances. Maybe they have an extra unit in their house.
Right.
They've converted a barn into a single-family dwelling against the zoning ordinance. They'll receive a summons that looks something like this. This is a municipal court summons from the town of Tiverton. It's a statewide form. We'll have to get some printed. That'll summon you to appear before the court for what's called an arraignment. And they'll come before me, and I'll read the charge to them, and they'll be asked whether they plead guilty or they admit the charge, or that they deny the charge and plead not guilty. If they plead not guilty, of course, they'll come back to the court. In a lot of cases where there are zoning offenses, at least my experience in Portsmouth and in Tiverton and in Middletown, in those types of cases, they usually engage an attorney, because my experience with those is that on an informal level, the building inspector usually tries to resolve those types of things.
Right, without going to court.
Yeah, when they can't resolve it, he has to bring it to the attention of the court. And if we reach that level, usually it's a contested dispute that's going to involve the attorneys, and they'll be allowed to make argument, and we'll conduct a trial.
Yeah.
Where the building inspector will have to testify.
Are you familiar yet with our wastewater? We have a new wastewater regulation?
No, we talked about that at a meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago, and I understand that there are some wastewater regulations that have been enacted, and the town will have the authority to enforce that through the municipal court.
So presumably infractions would then come to you on that,
I believe so. Yes, that was what I was told.
Yeah.
So we'll be dealing with that.
And then traffic some point in the future?
Traffic should be, we should be able to get traffic underway. That's going to involve coordination, of course, with the police department.
Sure.
And with the traffic tribunal. What happens in those cases is that the police officer will issue a ticket in the same form that it would be as if you were going to the traffic tribunal, but in that case it'll summon you to appear before the municipal court. Now, some tickets you can mail in and pay the fine. Other tickets you can't. If you've had more than one, if it's your second offense, you can't mail it in. So those will come before the municipal court. If you just mail it in and you've paid the fine and it goes on your record. There are some people that will come to court to take advantage of what's called a safe driving record. There'll be quite a few of those people. And the officers usually advise people that, look, if you haven't had a ticket in the last 3 years in any jurisdiction, now if you have a Massachusetts license, you have to have a clean record in Massachusetts. If you haven't had any speeding tickets or any kind of traffic violations in the last 3 years, then you're entitled to have your case dismissed on the good driving statute. But you can't do that by mail. You have to come to court.
Okay.
And so I will read the charge to them, and if they ask to be treated as a safe driver, and their Rhode Island driving abstract or their state driving abstract is before me, and I can review it, and I determine that they have a good safe driving record, I have the authority to dismiss the case, and they will pay only the court costs, which I think are $35. Fines now in the speeding tickets I think are $85 for less than 20 miles over the 10, if it's 10 or less rather. So we should be dealing with that. That brings revenue into the town. We share.
Sure.
We would share some of the fines and the court costs with the state. And therefore, you had mentioned to me whether what the economics of the court system is. It's interesting because this is one example where localization actually saves money, because municipal courts, probate courts are a good example of, town actually can make money on something like that. We don't, because it doesn't cost a lot to run the court. You're not paying for a full-time clerk. You don't have to worry about a pension.
Yeah.
You're not paying medical or other benefits. You're not paying for a full-time judge with a big pension. those types of things. We're working on a part-time basis, and we receive what I call more or less a stipend for what we do. And the clerk will probably be somebody that's already employed in the office and will take some of her duties and make municipal court. And maybe when we go to traffic, that it'll be necessary to hire somebody part-time. In Tiverton, they have somebody that's part-time.
That'd be like a clerk.
Be a
traffic
clerk that is in charge of collecting the money, the fines, notifying people of court if they if the case is continued, and just handling all the files that are generated from that, and also communicating or coordinating with the traffic tribunal, with the Department of Motor Vehicles. For example, if somebody doesn't show up for court, they're going to be defaulted. All right, so they're going to have to pay. They're going to be fined the amount on the ticket. They're going to be defaulted, but a notice then gets sent to the Registry of Motor Vehicles that they did not appear for a traffic offense, and the Motor Vehicles Registry will send them a notice suspending their license for that. And so it has to be, there's some coordination there. They have to be, and also before every case, before every traffic case, notice has to be given to the Department of Motor Vehicles to send down the traffic record, or what they call the abstract of the driver. And if somebody has an out-of-state license, they have to get, they themselves are responsible for getting that state to produce their traffic abstract, their driving abstract. Everyone has a driving abstract that'll show how many tickets you've had. And they usually run it back, I think they only run it back 3 years though. So.
Now, where will the court be held? In the town hall?
We're going to be using the town council chambers in the town hall. I don't think it'll be a problem. I know in Tiverton it gets a little crowded in there. In Middletown it gets crowded. They've had to use the neighboring parking lot on some days.
Wow. In
Middletown, because they sit every couple of weeks, but when I was sitting there we had over 100 cases some days. And I think we're going to sit at 8:30 in the morning, probably on a Wednesday or something like that. We haven't determined exactly what the date's going to be, but it'll probably be 8:30, which is about as early as people as you can make it, so that people can dispose their cases and then get on to work, I suppose. You can't really do it at night because that involves then town employees working overtime or something
opening
like
the
that.
building up.
Opening the building up, and it conflicts with meetings and council.
Yeah.
Meetings
I can see a lot of
usually are a
advantages, though,
lot.
for the police department for not having to drive to Providence every day to testify in some of these traffic cases.
That's true. The first appearance on a traffic ticket does not require the officer that gave the ticket. Doesn't require him to show up. But if the motorist denies the charge, then it goes to trial. And if it's a red light case or something, the officer has to come in and testify. They're sworn in. We usually start with them testifying that as to the traffic stop and what the circumstances were and things of that sort. And then the motorist has the right to cross-examine the officer. It's a regular trial. So they have to come to court. So it'll be much easier for the police to deal with.
This seems like one of those things that we should have done it a long time ago or something.
Yeah, I think most towns are getting.
Sense.
Yeah, most towns are getting the idea that it makes sense to have a municipal court. Barrington has a new one, and I think a few other towns upstate. Not sure exactly.
Now, do
which
all
ones.
3 towns on the island here now have municipal courts? As far as you know.
Yes, Newport has a municipal court that's very active, and Newport's court, of course, handles a lot of cases involving infractions in the summertime because they have an influx of tourists and persons that are down there. So they'll handle 100 cases of people walking around drinking on St. Patrick's Day. We probably won't have that.
Yeah.
But they'll have that. They have overcrowding. They have noise violations of a large nature. So the Newport Municipal Court's been very active, and also active in code enforcement, zoning, and things of that sort. Middletown's had a court now for probably 10 years. Tiverton's court, I can't say how long that's been. I bet that's been 10 years too.
Yeah.
I'd have to look.
We're just playing catch-up here, I guess. But
So now Portsmouth's the last. Little Compton, of course, does not have one. Jamestown does not have one. But we are the last of the larger towns, I think, to get going on this. And I think it makes sense.
absolutely does, in my view. Anyway.
Yeah, no kidding.
One of the things we talked about was the need to get experience or understanding some of the local zoning and other issues. And I imagine that's just part of what you do more or less on the job, I guess.
Yeah, if I get a case that involves a zoning infraction, I've got I'll study the ordinance, and you get the benefit of the testimony of the building inspector and the solicitor's office will be involved in that, and whatever else comes before me. Lawyers are always looking in the books. You don't remember, you can't memorize or know everything. So every statute you take a look at. I was looking at one this morning that was before me in probate court in Tiverton, where I sat a little while ago, that involved proving a will where the witnesses to the will are not available any longer. So, I know there's a procedure. I don't know exactly what the procedure was, so we had to take a look at the ordinance. The attorney that was before me didn't know the procedure, and together we figured it out. So yeah, there will be some startup on that for sure. But I'll give everyone their day in court, as I think that's important. That's been my philosophy. I think in a general way, I always feel that everyone's case is as important to them as it's the most important thing to them. So they deserve, even if it's a small case.
Sure.
I've always treated my clients that way, and whatever is bugging them or that they need help with, you give them their day. I think people should leave, and I told this to the town council when I interviewed for the job. I think people should leave any court, whether it's the district court, superior court, or municipal court, or traffic tribunal, with a feeling that they were treated fairly. I think it's very, very important for our young people and for everyone to have a respect for the legal system. And when they walk out of there shaking their head in some kind of dismay because they weren't treated the right way, it always troubles me, because I think it doesn't help make it easier for us to live in a sane,
right.
civil society,
And that's one of the purposes of this program, is to try to inform people about what's going on in town. And I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. Our new police chief, Tom Lee, is starting a citizens police academy here. Starting up in first class, it'll be 8 weeks of classes on Thursday night, I believe, Wednesday night perhaps, and go through all the facets of what the police department does.
That sounds like a great idea.
And I would think that part of that would be sort of an introduction to the court system as well. And,
Yep.
But the smarter we can make people, the better off.
Yeah. No.
Judge, let me welcome you to Portsmouth, and I'd like to, if you promise to come on back on the program maybe in 6 months and tell us how it's going.
It might be longer than 6 months, but because I'm not sure we'll be rolling to the volume that we want to. But as soon as we get rolling again and we have a system going, I'd be glad to come back.
Well, if you promise to come back, I'll promise I won't tell any of my lawyer jokes.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Doug Smith, thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.